Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar tonight. We're really excited you're here. We're talking about the 3 steps to writing super good, really good personal comedy. I'm Christina, and today we're going to talk about how to write a great joke, how to express the point in your point of view, and the number one thing, fundamental component of brilliant personal comedy. This is me. I'm Christina. You can tell because those are my pictures. I'm a stand-up comedian. I've been a comedian since 1986. I just celebrated my 30th anniversary. I'm a writer. I'm a comedy coach and personal development coach. And I'm also the founder and coach of Stand Up the Workshop, which is a workshop intensive for people who want to express themselves on stage in a stand-up format. I've just seen a lot of comedy. I've written a lot of comedy. I've thought about comedy a lot. And I've performed a lot of comedy. And then with me today is Elon.
Hi. Yeah, thank you. I'm so
Hi.
happy to be here.
Good.
Uh, I'm a therapist, poet, joke writer, comic, exploring various things. But one thing I love about comedy and why I'm passionate about it is because I thought for me it would be this balance to my work as a therapist. It would be this light side where I could explore something that was sort of at the other end of the spectrum. But what I've found is that there's this huge overlap. And so both require truth and both require diving deep. And I initially met Christina through taking her workshop, and it was really transformative for me. It changed my life personally and professionally. I bring it into my work, and so I really believe in this work.
And you're an amazing joke writer. You have a rare facility with writing jokes. You're awesome at that.
Thank you.
Not a great therapist, but I mean, as a joke writer, you're like top notch.
It could be better,
You know,
but people laugh.
people laugh. And as a therapist, you're like, like middle notch. You know what I mean? Like if there's 3 notches, you'd be like the middle one.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be at the bottom.
You're moving up. All right. And Elon and I coach Stand Up the Workshop together now. That's why we're here together today. So let's talk about comedy. So what is that? What's the difference between personal comedy and just that and comedy? Personal comedy comes from, of course, a personal point of view. Let me tell you a little story. This is how I came to be someone who was focused on this type of comedy. I was a comedian for a number of years, and doing pretty well, had a lot of work, and I had this great gig in San Diego at the Bahia Hotel, this resort down there, and they always had big conferences. So one time I was there, and there was this big conference of surgeons, and then there was another conference of farmers. So there are farmers and surgeons and their spouses in the audience when I was performing. And I had this amazing magical night, and I can't even tell you why, but just everything came together. I mean, we bonded, everything gelled, and I remember at the beginning of my set, just like in the first 5 minutes, I had this exciting moment where I thought I could just say anything. I could say anything to these people. And about 20 minutes into my set, we were laughing about something. I don't remember what the joke was, but there was this huge laugh, and the audience was laughing, and the staff was laughing, and I was laughing, and we were laughing so hard about something that there was this moment where you could hear everybody go after they laughed, just to breathe. And I remember thinking, oh man, I wish I had something of substance to say. I wish I wasn't just about to go into my boyfriend material. And of course, I went into my boyfriend material and it was fine. But that's the first time I remember thinking, I feel like there's something I want to express and I don't know how. And I just sort of hid it for a while. And eventually it became more and more difficult until I had a breakthrough in expression. It took me a while. It took me a few years, actually, but I came around. So personal comedy isn't just sharing your point of view. It's sharing who you are. So Elon, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, well,
Mister?
I would say that personal comedy is sharing who you are, and because you're actually sharing a bit of who you are, you're building a real relationship with the audience. It's not a contrived exchange.
Right. And you're not just talking at them, like, here's my
Mhm.
cleverly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So revelation, what does it mean to write comedy that's revealing? And so a piece here is that there are many clever people, and writing a clever joke, there's no shortage of them. You know, if you go on Twitter, you'll see it, or anywhere you look, there's people, you know, creating memes or creating jokes, which you do need to learn how to do, and we do teach that. But to reveal something is actually to go inward and to dig and to find something that was unknown and to reveal it. So that's what starts the process of a relationship between you and the audience.
Yeah, and I think, again, when you're looking at comedy that isn't personal, I mean, there's, of course, amazing comedians who are not doing personal comedy, and it's completely credible and relevant. It's just, I don't know, jokes just for the sake of jokes, it really becomes pattern recognition, don't you think?
Yeah, it's sort of got a mathematical quality to it.
And it's kind of like, I didn't see that coming.
hmm
But there's also social commentary that doesn't it's your point of view, but it's not necessarily expressing something personal about yourself, right?
hmm
That's awesome. And okay, so anyway, revelation, and then what's this?
Relevance. So it's relevant to your audience because it speaks to their experience of life as you share your own. So what we're touching on here is that even when you're sharing something that's unique to you, there's something universal. Like your audience might not have been through this story you're sharing. They might not have gotten a divorce, for example, if that's what you're writing about. But they might know, or they will know what it's like to feel lonely or to feel betrayed or to feel the anger that comes with a change you didn't expect to happen in your life.
Exactly. Well said. And then resonant. So this just means that your material has emotional content. It resonates with you emotionally, and then it resonates for us. So that's what we feel that makes the comedy come alive. So here are a few comedians. You probably know these names and faces. And they all do personal comedy. You've got Maria Bamford and Mark Maron, Mike Birbiglia, Tig Notaro. Louis C.K. is probably the most famous of all, isn't he? This is something I pulled out of Wikipedia about Tig Notaro. If you guys don't know her, you really should listen to the recording of her at Largo. It's an audio recording. It's the first time that she had just found out that she had breast cancer. Her mother had died. Her partner had broken up with her all at once. She was very ill, found out she had breast cancer. Partner broke up with her, mother died, like all in a very short period of time. And she went on stage at Largo, and without having any idea how things were going to turn out. She didn't have it worked out. She didn't have it figured out. She wasn't up there just sharing the truth about something. But she was sharing her experience of not knowing. And that launched her career, I would say. She'd been around for a while, but that's what really made her famous. And so then this is something that she said. She said previously she was more distant and observational, but now she reflects on her childhood and her life. She shifted from not to darker comedy, but to personal comedy. I think I really like the way that's said. You got Mike Birbiglia. He got big with his show Sleepwalk with Me because he had a sleep disorder that had him walk out a second-story window, and he was injured. And that's when I realized something was really needed to be altered, and he started looking at it, and he developed a show. I think it was off Broadway, wasn't it? And then more recently, My Girlfriend's Boyfriend. There's a couple of them, but that talks about his relationship, talks about his experience, him giving up the need to be right. So it's very reflective and introspective material. Maria Bamford, She talks about her mental illness, her anxiety, her family. She's a quirky person, but she really does share who she is on stage. What did we say about her? She's surreal, but she's also, I think, she's probably my favorite comedian right now. She's emotionally honest and hilarious. And then Louis C.K. What would you say about him, Elon?
Oh, well, he writes about, everything that seems to be in his experience. He writes about his kids. He writes about his experience in the world. And what I like most is I think he writes about his fear, what it's like for fear to come up for him.
Yeah,
I saw him perform once, and he had said something like, for the first 15 years, he was writing sort of absurd, silly jokes. And he said, I don't know why it took me so long to figure it out. You're just talking to people.
Yeah, that's right. You're just talking to people. And that's why I think that whatever is in your way between you and talking to people generally is in your way when you're talking to an audience. So Marc Maron, I just saw him last summer actually. It says he is known for his relentless onstage exploration of his own relationships with family, girlfriends, and other comedians. And he's committed to self-revelation and cultural analysis. That guy is a pretty self-absorbed guy and very smart and thoughtful. So these are all examples of people who are on the comedy scene, famous comedians who do personal comedy. It's not a confessional. What does that mean?
So I guess when you're thinking about exploring personal comedy, I think one misnomer would be that it's like sharing your journal or getting up there and revealing your secrets in a painful way, which is not. It's something that you've gained perspective on, or that you have a new, unique point of view on.
Yeah, it's not vomiting your feelings on somebody, on an audience.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, like, I'm compelled to tell you everything. That's a very different, that's different than sharing your personal point of view or your personal experience.
Yeah,
or writing from your life experience. Unbridled self-expression sounds good, though. Do we need to bridle it? Are we talking about bridled self-expression?
Somewhat bridled.
Like moderately bridled self-expression is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
All right. Comedy from the inside out. That just means that your attention is on what's going on within you, and then you're externalizing it, as opposed to Elon. As opposed to
when
being focused on what's
outside. In
drawing it within you. So let's talk about writing a joke. So you know what? A joke is actually super simple, easy formula. You can pretty much distill any joke that anybody does down to 3 parts: the setup, the punchline, and the tag. So let's go through that real quick. So the setup, that's just everything that an audience needs to know to understand the punchline. And the punchline is basically your point. It's the point you're making. A setup is really important. I noticed that when we're crafting jokes and when I'm coaching people to do that, that's the hardest part for people, is to edit that down to the essence. And the stronger and shorter the setup, the greater the payoff. And the long setup, the less payoff. There's your punchline. That's when you laugh. It's the point of the joke. Holds the surprise, releases the tension that was created in the setup. Tag or post. That's another line that extends the laughter of the line. So let's look at a joke and let's dismantle it. Here's one of them. This is like 30 years old, 25 years. When I was a kid, my mother made Halloween costumes that were only scary to her. One year, I was mellow. In 5th grade, I was my brother as a homosexual. Of course, I told my friends I was a gypsy. All right, so the setup. When I was a kid, my mother made me Halloween costumes that were only scary to her. You need to know that, right? You need to know I was a kid. You need to tell, I'm talking about my mom making costumes, and you need to know that they were scary to her so that you can understand why one year I was melanoma. That's the first punchline. This joke has 2 punchlines. In 5th grade, I was my brother as a homosexual. So now I've demonstrated the setup in 2 ways. And then the tag is, of course, I told my friends I was a gypsy. So you want to create surprise, and one way to do that is pay attention to the order of concepts. So when you're presenting concepts in the joke, it's good to like start with the least surprising and build. So just in this setup alone, I have 3 concepts. And I moved from the least surprising to the most surprising. When I was a kid, okay, my mother made me Halloween costumes. Oh, go on. That were only scary to her. Ah, okay, that's the setup. So then you also want to end the sentence, if you can, ideally, with the funniest, most punchy, most powerful, interesting word. That's really the fun thing about crafting a joke. There are 2 aspects that are really fun. One is finding a salient detail to demonstrate the premise, and then the other is to find the best words. So in this case, I wrote, 1 year I was melanoma. I didn't say I was cancer one time. Oh my God, it's awful. First of all, cancer has a bite to it, doesn't it? Melanoma is more specific, and again, the more specific you can be, the more interesting the joke. Melanoma is a funny sounding word. I mean, I could have just said one time she made a costume that looked like some kind of skin lesion. I think that's what it was like this scabby thing. That wouldn't work, obviously. It's kind of gross, first of all, but it's also vague. So anyway, that's just to show you 1 year I was, and then the last word is at the end of the sentence. At the end of the sentence, I was melanoma. Here we go again with the concepts in 5th grade. I was my brother, really, as a homosexual. What? So I could have said one time, another time, actually, I was my brother and he was gay. Or one time I was my gay brother. Doesn't have the same impact. Again, conceptually, it builds and it ends with the strongest word. In 5th grade, 5th grade doesn't matter, really. It's just that it's specific, so it holds your attention better. In 5th grade, I was my brother as a homosexual. Homosexual just sounds funnier to me. And also it sounds funny like coming from a mom's point of view, since she's the one who was making the costumes. So then there's a tag to this one. Of course, I told my friends I was a gypsy, right? Because you can imagine the humiliation of a kid who's walking around looking like her gay brother, so she tells her friends otherwise. So that's the joke. That's the joke in its parts. Is it true? Sure. It's my mother never, she wasn't crafty. She never made me a Halloween costume in my life. She didn't sew or anything. She was not afraid of melanoma, skin cancer, or any kind of cancer. She wouldn't have cared at all if my brother had been gay. He wasn't gay. She wouldn't have cared if he was. But she was an alarmist. And at the time I wrote this joke, when I was in my 20s, you know, I was feeling oppressed by how she would project her fears onto us. So this was a way of expressing that. So the details aren't true, but the content is true. So, hey, here's a joke by Elon. By the way, check out this picture. It's Elon driving his car with his cat in the back window looking at a cop, looking at a cop car. I love that picture so much.
Thanks. So I'm a synchronistic introvert. People don't come into my life for a reason. So the setup here is, you know, you have 4 or 5 words set up. I'm a synchronistic introvert. It gives you all the information you need. It's said as succinctly as possible, right? I'm not wasting any time because the shorter the setup, the more likely I'll have a bigger payoff. And it says something about me. You know, I am very introverted. It is difficult for me to be in groups of people, right? But at the same time, I believe that the people that come into my world, I'm there to learn something, that there's something going on. And so there's some sort of tension there that I have to work out or continue to work out. So this joke came from that process.
It's a tight joke.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one of Mike. Why don't you take this one? You're a boy. He's a boy.
I've given up on having a traditional male physique, so now I'm going for strong, independent women. It's going pretty well. So Mike Birbiglia tells stories, and one thing that you'll notice with comics that tell stories is that embedded in those stories is a series of jokes, of setups and punches and tags. And so when I was looking at his material for a joke, it took a little time because a lot of his stories build and have characters, and you're getting to know the situation he was in. Like here's an example of something that sort of just stands alone. And the way he delivers it, it probably doesn't seem like it's written. It seems like it's delivered off the cuff, but the language is very intentional.
Exactly. Here's another one. There's Janeane Garofalo, another one of my favorites. Here would be my Valentine's card that I think I'm going to send to my boyfriend. Things have been going well thus far. I will find more ways to become unavailable to you. So if you have a sense of who Janeane Garofalo is, I mean, she actually had a production company that was called I Hate Myself Productions back in like the early 90s. So obviously she's addressing some anxiety she has about a relationship. You know, it's a joke, but it's not just expressing, it's actually expressing something that she experiences in a relationship or a pattern that she has in a relationship. I think it's just hilarious, actually. And again, things have been going well, and then it leads to, I'll find more ways, yeah, to become unavailable to you. So the surprise is at the end. It's real basic here. So what is the point in your point of view? So we talked about how we define personal comedy. We talked about, you know, basic joke structure. How do you pull that all together? So the first thing you do is stop trying to be funny. What I notice in coaching people in the workshops and the writing courses is naturally the first place they go. Imagine a workshop in 2 weeks and 3 days. You have to, you know, have a set and perform. The first thing that they're going to do is look for the funny. I've got to find a way to make these people laugh. That's all I can think about is how am I going to make them laugh? The point is to make them laugh. So it's counterintuitive. But the trick is to put your attention on you and what you want to express. You put your attention on your expression and not on how you are perceived. You know, of course, when we're afraid, that's all we can think about is how people are going to perceive us. But that's not just in the workshop or when somebody's going on stage for the first time. You see it in lots of writing and performing where people are their concern, however unconsciously, is that they give the right impression. They want people to think of them a certain way, and so they write and perform from that point. So in really good comedy, your attention is on your experience, what it is that you want to express. Your attention is not on trying to find something funny. So what happens, Elon, when you go straight for the funny?
Yeah, so you end up writing jokes that aren't quite there. You haven't explored what's going on a deeper level, and they just become sort of flippant.
Right, and also you distract yourself from the work of actually exploring and getting something new about it, some new insight. This is Elon. Elon, this is something Elon says.
Comedy is not created, comedy is discovered. So I think a part of the process is trust, right? Like, at least for me, when I'm writing, or if I write a joke or we're working on a joke, the first thought I have after a joke is always that was it. That's the last joke I'll ever write. Like, it's this scarcity comes up in me, you know, because I have this idea that I have to produce this comedy. Like, I have to come up with it. I have to make it. But if I can sort of step back and trust that it's there, that comedy is there waiting, all I have to do is keep exploring. Then I set aside that whole trying to be funny, and I trust the process.
Yeah, comedy is not created. That was hard the first time you said that, because I thought, well, of course it's created. We create everything. But I get your point.
Yeah.
You're saying, and I think it's following your curiosity, going back to keeping your attention off trying to be funny or looking for the funny or you know, managing somebody's perception of you or the audience's perception of you.
Yeah. What's that thing? Like, was it
Is
Michelangelo?
following the,
He doesn't
what's,
sculpt the statue. He takes away all the excess that it's already there, the sculpture.
yeah, he said that. Oh, that's stupid. But yeah, that's, I mean, it's a long time ago.
Or irrelevant.
No, that's great. And also it really is about following your curiosity and approaching your material or your topics with, as you're exploring them, with some sense of wonder. Don't you think?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I think of when I think of discovering.
Yeah, to let life surprise you, to think that maybe I don't know everything.
I think one of the things I could say about all the comedians we talked about before is they're not going up there and saying, this is the truth. Are you ready for the truth? Because I'm telling you the truth. Even Mark Maron, who can be, you could see him being a little self-righteous that way.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling you what their truth is, what the truth is for them in that moment, which could shift.
Mm-hmm.
Second, and that's far more palatable, digestible than somebody who's saying, here's, I mean, I have such resistance to any kind of performance where somebody is telling me what to think or how to feel.
Yeah,
I think the confessional, yeah, and I think that's the part about it, like being a confessional, vomiting their feelings. I think what that is like, oh my gosh, I feel this way, so you should too. It's a form of manipulation. And I think really great personal comedy is like, this is how I see it, and they don't expect you or ask you to see the same way. And then you're far more open to recognizing that in yourself, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So this is super simple. This is how we teach it in the course is, so you have if you have something that's, you want to talk about your divorce, you write everything you know about the divorce. That's the first thing. You write everything you know about the topic. Then within that material, you find the premises. And a premise, if you don't know, is just an idea or a theory, a single idea that you pull out of that. And then you take that idea and you find it, you turn it into a joke. And the trick is to find what is ridiculous about you and your experience. So this is Carol Shannon. Carol did the workshop. She's done it twice, actually, about a year apart. And she has, just to share a little bit about her, she is like a super nice person and pretty disempowered in life because of it, something that she wrestled with. And she wrote material about it, and then she's actually performing a one-woman show about this topic. It's a great show. I'm really excited to see it. So here's one of her bits. I'm a very nice person. Friends tell me I'm too nice. I don't know where that line is exactly. I mean, I'm great about letting cars merge ahead of me. I figure 1 car is polite, 2 cars is gracious, 3 cars codependent. I'm 3-car nice. So what is she expressing there? Like, that's her whole nice thing, is that she goes too far. And then here's another one of hers. I say sorry when I don't really mean it, so I'm going to start using the word awesome instead. Like at work, I'm awesome, but we have to let you go. Please tell your family how awesome I am. It's better for my self-esteem. So this was, so she wrote about something that was disempowering to her, and in her writing and creating this material out of it, she actually empowered herself. She put it on the table. She recognized this was operating in the background. She was taking what was in the background and put it in the foreground. She created material. She found what was ridiculous about her in it, and it made a difference. And then, as I said, I think this is like a great, this is like a very romantic story. She went on to do a whole, one-woman show, solo performance about it.
Yeah, and she got to have fun with this. She got to, she got to actually take this out in the world, in her mind, like at a restaurant or whatever. Oh, I ordered Coke, not Diet Coke. I'm awesome. Could you fix that? But she just became aware of how habitually she was apologizing.
Right. I'm awesome. Can you not smoke around me right now? I'm awesome. Could you move your car, please?
I'm awesome, better.
And the number one critical, most important, essential component to great personal comedy is vulnerability. or as we like to call it, the vuln. It's
So
scary. It's so vuln. It's scary to be vulnerable. So this is the other aspect is, um, you know, there's a reason we hide things, and I don't mean, you know, hide like the time that you killed a mailman or something. I mean, there's a reason that you hide like whatever it is that you, some shame point or pain point or something. Um, and we tend to want to stay on the surface, especially when we're writing material. And when we go just a little bit deeper, people recognize the honesty in it. It feels risky to us, but the audience doesn't necessarily know that we're being vulnerable. Here's why. They expect us and give us permission to say things that they would not say to themselves or say in polite company. They expect you to talk to them like you have created a rapport, like your friends. So often we're really scared about sharing something, and it could be something as simple as being like, I'm messy, or I don't know, what have you been vulnerable about? I'm
lonely, or when I get pissed off, you know, that's actually for me, like that, like little things bother me and I kind of loop on them in my head. Or maybe
right.
actually the parts of being a therapist that are kind
Oh,
of
I
hard to
love that
admit.
material.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, every time I go on stage, I have a friend who used to ask me, what are you going to tell on yourself?
Hmm.
And the whole set comes alive when I just have one bit, just one joke, or even just some reference to something that I normally hide. There's something about that that creates a deeper connection with the audience. Um, so here's Brene.
Brene Brown, vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they are never weakness. You know, and so many of us have come to associate vulnerability with weakness. It feels scary, and vulnerability really is, by definition, is that you're vulnerable. But that's part of
I,
the
I like that it says it sounds like truth. She says vulnerability sounds like truth.
mm,
Yeah, that's right. So,
and
yeah,
yeah. So, well,
yeah.
I was just thinking of this Brene Brown piece, is that really touches on the idea of sharing something. The reason that vulnerability is so powerful is because with any sharing, if you're writing comedy to share it in any capacity, there can be the inclination towards shame, which is like a big part of her work. Shame says, you know,
Mm,
there's something wrong with you, right? Not something you did,
mm-hmm,
something wrong with you. So
mm-hmm,
vulnerability to be able to stand out and say, this is a part of me that I used to hide, and I'm not actually collapsing into shame about it.
mm.
So you can't write comedy in a vacuum. So there's this, a lot of people when they start the writing class or they start the stand-up class, they want to write the joke from start to finish because it's my creation. But this is a collaborative process. That's sort of one of the gifts of this course, is that you're working with other creative people who have perspective on your process. Like when I
We're not
first,
just in the course. That's how comedians, when I'm writing comedy, I'm coming up with new material. I call a couple of comedian friends and run my material by them, right?
hmm,
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry, I'm
exactly.
interrupting
Oh no.
yeah.
Um, so when I first took Christina's class, she kept saying, you know, actually go there. I want to see something that's vulnerable. I want to see something that's real. And I found, you know, 100 ways to dodge it. And eventually I said, fine, here's a poem I wrote. And I wrote it about being in love, which is probably actually the most vulnerable piece I've shared on stage, what it's like for me to actually be falling madly in love and what it was like at the time. And when I shared the poem, I was crying and I was having this experience like, this is like, there's no way I could share it. And Christina started laughing, like, but not in, you know, not in a way of like pushing me away, but it's saying like, are you seeing what's possible with this material? And I couldn't, because I was so in my perspective. It was so like sacred to me, and it was this huge tragedy in my life of what could happen if it didn't go the way I thought it could, that I didn't see any way that there was comedy in it. But when I kind of finally got that there was, oh my God, there's this like, there's a whole piece of absurdity, or there's this whole place where I can see ridiculousness about myself. It, you know, I was just kind of wanted to keep writing about it. I was sort of hungry to explore that more.
Oh, this is, I'm surprised by my own slide. So we teach Writing Up, the online course, and that is the process that we use in the Stand Up the workshop, in the 2-week and 3-day workshop intensive. It's the same process. Here's the advantage of it. It's over, it's 5 weeks and 6 calls. So you have a lot of time to explore. And anything you write about, you do not have to take on stage. The disadvantage, of course, is that you don't have the deadline. You know, you don't have that fire in your butt to get on stage. And it's something that you can do completely from home, wearing your preferred home attire. Which for me at the moment is sweats and a tank top, but I did put on makeup for the webinar, by the way.
I can tell.
Elon.
You sound better.
Can you? Do I look like, is it perkier, or
it's just
what do you think it is?
Like pulled down, you know, dragged down by life.
By my heavy energy?
Yeah.
So that's the great thing about this course. Now here's the nuts and bolts. It's 6 calls once a week on a Monday, and then we give you prompts and exercises every week that you have like a strong sense of direction of where to go and what to write about. And then we post videos so that you can, and this is something I think is really important to you if you're going to be writing comedy, is to watch comedy. This is the value of YouTube. I think comedy is a living, alive art, and is best seen live for sure. But now that we have, you know, virtual reality, you can go to YouTube and watch videos, and I think the value there is that you see what you like and you don't like. And I really say to people that if you see comedy you like, I mean, there's a comedian you really love, look to see what it is that they're expressing that you want to express in yourself. I mean, the first layer, and then the more you see comedy, at first people are very impressed by confidence and cleverness, right? They're wowed by that. But if you watch enough, you sort of get underneath it and you look at, there's definitely a point of view that, and you might agree or disagree, but you find something that you want, like Maria Bamford, I love certain things she expresses. It's something that inspires me, right? So anyway, we watch videos, and then we have a Facebook group, and this is the awesome part. Elon and I, for those 5 weeks, are continually guiding you in the Facebook group. We're there every single day. So first you've got the recorded calls. I love this slide because it's pretty simple. We get on a call for an hour and 15 minutes. You get some new information, and we inspire each other, and then you're held accountable, which is important when you're writing, because I don't know about you, but I call myself a writer, and sometimes I can go a long time without writing if I don't have a structure. Private Facebook group, that's where we get to share our process. This is where the community grows, and this is what I think is so valuable in this course. There are a community of people like you that are creative and exploring and in the same boat. So for 5 weeks, you get to hang out with virtually and share. It's kind of like a weirdly intimate kind of group. Share your process. You can share your material and help each other work on it, which is the best way to learn. Also, it's a great place to access all your assignments. Elon and I post videos and give you specific things to look for in the videos so you can sort of expand your comedic point of view and sort of move past those limitations you might have now about comedy, learn more about yourself and your comedic perspective. And then again, it's, you know, we're there all the time. We're just holding your hand. Okay, here's the writing part. So you're going to be having exercises and assignments for writing. But as I said before, I think something really valuable and really, really basic about this course is that it's a structure to keep you writing. It is a structure to have you write. And if you write every day for 5 weeks, you are going to write well beyond the course. You have a habit, and you can actually produce something. And every writer, quote, end quote, I know, really needs a structure and really misses it when it's not there. It's so valuable that way. The other thing is when you learn how to write a really good joke, you learn how to make your point succinctly and powerfully. And that works for any kind of speaking and it works for any genre of writing. It's really a great way to just learn how to trim the fat from your writing and express yourself more powerfully. So, and then there's another practice that we call engage with the observer, and that's really, this is what I realized a while back when I first started. I first started teaching 4 years ago, and there were two aspects. I thought, you know, it's going to be full of middle-aged women who just want to feel like a star, like play comedy, like play comedian. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to do that, there's two things. One is I want to create a really great magical performance evening, which is my commitment in the workshop. And then the other is that they have to share something from themselves. Otherwise, it's just going to be really boring. So when I looked at it, I saw that it seemed to have two things that non-comedians don't have. And it's through training and conditioning for the most part. And one of them is that they are always observing what's happening around them. They're very keen, they have a keen awareness of their immediate environment. They're kind of telling the story of what's happening as they go through life. And that is an excellent access to material. In fact, it's the quickest access, I think. And I've heard people say that they actually feel a physical shift when they start this observation practice. So that's a part that I really, really love about this course. So that's our writing course. Here's some nice people have said some nice things. Were you trying to break in, Elon, or are you just?
Oh, I'm just quietly mumbling.
Yeah, I thought so. I can hear you going.
Well, I was thinking of just with the practice of observing is that another word could be building the witness, you know, so comedians are very observant people and you're witnessing the world, but you're also witnessing yourself in it. So one thing that you start to notice is that there's a story of what happened, and then there's what's actually occurring in the present moment. And so it sort of allows you to uncouple those.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, it's $347 for the course, but if you're interested in doing the course, I would urge you to go to that link below and sign up. It starts April 4th through May 9th. It's Monday nights, Mountain Time, 8 o'clock. It's just 6 calls in 5 weeks. And if you follow that link, you can have it for $297 as an incentive to get started and get your writing practice going and start writing comedy and start opening that creative valve and creating a community. I'll also send you a link tomorrow. I'll email you guys a link, and you'll have access to it there, and you can watch the webinar again if you like, if there's information here that you'd like to see again. Do we have any questions? Andrea, I forgot to mention Andrea is here today, and she is actually, I've worked with Andrea a lot. She's a very, very funny person, and she's also the person that's, what is it called, moderating?
Hosting?
The webinar?
I don't know. I don't know.
Hosting?
Hi. Yeah, this is so great. I just love listening to all these tips. They're so awesome. And even though I've been through your writing course, I've been through several workshops, I still get some great nuggets every time I hear this stuff. So for anyone listening, you're free to ask some questions, put some questions in the chat. I will watch those as we're going, but I'll just kick off a question that came up while I was listening to you and Alon talking about the vulnerability. And you know, I think that's definitely something that came up for me throughout the workshops. And anyway, just before, if I didn't give enough of a plug to the workshop, I highly, highly recommend it for anyone who wants to go deeper with their writing. I found it so amazing. So there's my little plug. But I wanted to find out with the vulnerability piece of it, like how do you know when something is just too tender to share, it's too like precious, it's too, you know, I think there were things that I was writing about, but then I felt like maybe it wasn't my story alone to tell, or if it was too precious to me to
So
even...
I have so what I ask people to do is, so I really think it's important to write about everything that is influencing you in your life. And sometimes we have something that might be trauma or something that's troubling. And the thing to do is to write about it, even if you don't talk about it. The first thing to do is express whatever's there, because if you hold back there, you're holding back. If you put the lid on that, you're putting the lid on everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not going to have that richness and that vulnerability to anything else you talk about. So first tell yourself you don't have to talk about anything you don't want to talk about, but you should write about it. Just write about it and see what's there. And then there's a way to write around it. So if you don't want to talk about something that has to do with somebody else, for example, or that you feel is going to, this is interesting because it's always women, by the way. What you make a valid point. This isn't because you're a woman, but it reminds me that it's always women that are afraid of hurting somebody's feelings, almost
so
exclusively, with a couple of exceptions. And then with men, it's only been men, with one exception, it's only been men that ever ask about heckling. Like they're more concerned about feeling dominated or looking like they're dominating or something. You know, they're like looking for the fight. So of course I have, like, you know, if you're sharing about your experience of something and you're being responsible for that, it's okay. But of course there are things that you're going to write about that you may not want to share. And there's a way of, if you explore it completely, you can find a way to express what's behind that experience in a way without sharing specific details.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to share those details. I understand that. I do remember somebody who had an experience like that, who was writing about, they were writing about their marriage, and they had some questions about their marriage, and they didn't want to share that on stage because their wife was going to be there. But it was something that was really on their mind, so they wrote about it, and then they ended up writing some jokes that about marriage that expressed their the way that they questioned the institution of marriage, without actually talking specifically about their own circumstances, which would have really, you know. The other thing I do is I really encourage people to see if they can resolve that before they get on stage, because, I mean, ideally the best thing is to be able to write about it and resolve it and have a conversation with that person so you can talk about it. I had, I'm sorry, Elon, go ahead.
No, and also, with this writing course, that's one of the benefits of it, is that there is no performance, so you really get to dive in and feel what it's like to write about everything without that pressure of, oh, which pieces am I going to bring to,
and that's what makes it right. And what makes it a transformational course is there's a natural thing that occurs, that when you write about it and you find what's ridiculous about yourself in those circumstances, you transform the experience, which means you alter your view of yourself. It's not like the world is altered. It's not like your circumstances are necessarily altered, but your view of yourself is altered. It's fundamentally the most powerful thing that you can do. And that's why I encourage people to write about it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Awesome. Well, we have a couple questions that have come in. Dana's asking, on the writing course, is there going to be another chance? Can't do it this time, but very interested to participate in it. So,
no, Dana, this is the only opportunity. So you either need to take this now or never write again. Something terrible is going to happen if you don't. Yes, Dana, there are 2 other courses in 2016, and I'll send you something tomorrow that has a replay of this and also has a link, so you can go check out the ones in the future. I think there's one that starts in July, and there's one that is in, I think, October.
Yeah.
But I think everyone should take this one.
Oh my gosh. It's like, not even, I mean, obviously things come up and you mean, it may really be impossible, but it's like, it is inexpensive.
Yeah.
It is hugely beneficial. It's you and your pen. It's awesome. And you're guided, and somebody's directing you and holding you accountable and supporting you. And you have 2 coaches supporting you the entire time. Just do it. It's hilarious how people are like, I gotta wait for the right. Dana, no offense to you, but generally, I gotta wait for the right time, and I gotta wait until I feel really centered. I gotta align. I don't feel aligned, yes. What was the other question? Was there another
So,
one?
yep, there's another question from William is asking, how is personal comedy different from other types of comedy? Is the structure basically the same?
The structure of a joke is the same. I mean, it's really simple. And there's different kinds of jokes, and there's names for the different kinds of jokes, different ways of creating surprise. But basically, it can be boiled down to those three things.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between, go ahead, Elon.
Oh, no, I was just going to give like an example of comedy that might not be personal, be like something like Mitch Hedberg of like, an escalator can never break, it can only become stairs.
Right.
You never. So that's a good joke, but we're not learning much about him. Or if you watch Seinfeld, he's very observant of the world, but it's hard to see what's actually going on in his inner world.
George Carlin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really valuable, a lot of, brilliant stuff about the world, about society and culture. I remember his plastic bit. That was the best bit, I thought. But again, not particularly introspective comedy. I hope that answers your question, William. Bill William.
Yeah. Awesome. So if anyone has any other questions, feel free to just put them in the chat. And I don't know, is there any other questions that popped up for me? I was thinking mostly vulnerability, that one. I think the other thing that I was wondering about too is, what I found that was happening when I was taking the courses is that some of the power, and I think you touched on this a little bit, but some of the power is taken out of something that you write about and explore a little bit. So I don't know if you have thoughts on other things that come up for you. I mean, I guess it does seem like there's a never-ending source of personal experience, so it's not like no, I've tapped out. A whole lot of jokes,
No, I guess I win.
We each get 5. We get 5. So I don't quite get what you're saying. You're saying, do we run out of material? Is what you're saying once we transform everything?
Yeah. Do we ever run out of material? And I mean, what's there's the whole writer's block. Is that, how do we get over those types of humps where we feel like we can't think of anything?
For me, having a writing structure and a habit of writing makes the biggest difference. And when I don't is when I feel like, so it's like this. As you're writing, you're opening the creative valve, right? You're activating your muse, right? Mm-hmm. So you're allowing, and then you're allowing that to flow. So the more that you feed that or open that valve, I always think of it, the more that stuff is going to come out. Whenever I feel like I'm not funny or I have nothing else to say, there is something I'm not looking at. There's like some block in there that I'm not looking at, something that I need to pay attention to in myself. That's what I found. No, there's always material, tons and tons and tons of material. It almost seems like the wiser you become, the more self-aware that you become, the more material that there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
And I really believe that everybody has access to that.
Yeah. I like that thought that there's some sort of something you're not tapping into if you're not feeling that, so that's good. So Vanda has a couple of questions. She said, I'm writing a really personal show that's based on stories which have a few punchlines within them. Would this help me?
Yes.
Good question. That's a really good question.
Thanks, Vanda.
Yes, done. Okay, she has another one.
It would help you because, does she? Okay.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
So I want to write a bit about the absurdities of terrorism. Can that be sort of personal even though it's global?
Yeah, it's your point. It is. It's your point of view about terrorism, isn't it? I mean, I can imagine that, it's basically, it's in your voice. It's finding what it is. It's pointing to you thinking about that as opposed to pointing to the terrorists doing something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and it's your experience of how does terror actually show up for you?
Yeah.
Or what is it like to live in a world where that's a part of your experience?
Yeah.
Or what?
Or like, where do you ignore it, or how does it not impact you and should? I was thinking this about global warming today. About I was reading something and I forced myself to read it because I did not want to hear that global warming was escalating. You know, it was said something like a group of scientists, top scientists, you know, have announced blah blah blah. And I did read the first paragraph, but that was it. 'Cause it was like, oh, and you know what I honestly thought? I thought something like, well, you know, it is a little dry around here anyway, so, you know, because I don't want to feel it. I don't want to feel the impact of it because I don't know what to do and I don't want to be scared. It's rich. What was her name?
Vanda.
Vanda? Vanda. Yeah, it's really rich. That's a really rich topic. I can imagine that you would make it very, very funny, you know, just energetically knowing who you are.
Yep. So she
having a
says,
sense of you energetically.
she's agreeing that it all makes sense. So she said, good point. So she's
So sign up, Vanda.
yeah.
Sign up right.
And so Michelle
Sign
is
up, Vanda.
asking, I only want to know if everyone will love me the next morning. Serious.
Oh, so that's really interesting because I assume you mean not after you sleep with someone or a group of people, but like after you perform like at a workshop or just perform on stage generally, right? I'll take that as a yes.
I think, yeah.
That's interesting. Will everybody still love me? Which
everything.
Makes
That's what she says.
You just want to be loved, don't you, Michelle? So if your attention is on having them love you, your attention is not on what you want to express. That would be your conundrum, and we all have something. And when we want everybody to love us, it's never enough. You know, it's just never enough. That would be an interesting thing to write about, actually.
Yeah, it would.
That would be an interesting thing to transform in your writing before you got on stage.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then answer B is yes.
Yeah, she said I was afraid of that.
Yeah, it's always the way, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
I had a big, for many, many years, I had a big shame spiral whenever I got off stage. Not every time. I went on stage a lot, so it wasn't every time. But when it was an important gig, like on TV or national television, I would be in a fetal position the next day. I felt like a fraud. I felt like, you know, I felt too visible. I just had the shame spiral, and it all comes from childhood or whatever. But and we'll all get together, and I'll tell you that story. But what I realized is what helped me, because it's very, very faint now, and what I realized is that if it's not about me, then I don't have to worry about it. So my question for myself is, well, what if it's not about you? To myself, you know?
Or Michelle.
What if it's not about Michelle?
What if it's not all about Michelle?
What if it's what?
Not at all about Michelle.
What if nothing's about Michelle?
What if we made up Michelle?
What if there is no Michelle?
So like us on Christina Hall Comedy, that's the best way to get updates, or follow me on Twitter if you like, at Ilan Ben-Ami.
And this recording will go out, so tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Yes. As soon as I have it, I will post it and I'll email it to all of you. Also, feel free to, you know, hit reply when I email you. Ask me any questions you have. If there's something you're working on or you want to talk about it, you know, feel free to contact me. I should also say that Ilan and I do co-coaching for people. There's a package there too if you're interested in doing the course and you'd also like to just get on the phone and have us expedite your process or help you really refine and tighten up material. We're really good at that, and we're offering a really good package for that. I can't remember what it was. What is it? $497, I think. It's like embarrassingly cheap.
Yeah. It will be more if you
I'd do it. I'd do that.
Next workshop. So
yes, we're just gonna keep bumping it up, man.
Yeah, it's never going to end.
So it's like endless. So I just want to say thank you to Andrea
Sure.
for facilitating this and doing this. She's an awesome marketer as well as writer and comedian, and you were enormously helpful. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Andrea. And I want to say thank you to Elon, my co-coach, whom I adore and admire, and I cannot believe how much easier my life is now that Elon is in my life.
I just want to say that you're welcome.
Thanks for acknowledging that.
It's important.
And thank
you. Express that.
Thank you for, good. That's awesome. Thank you for, thank you everybody. We have people from all over the world here tonight, and thank you. I mean, some of you are Dubai. Somebody's here from Dubai, Jakarta, and then where else is it? Oh, Moscow. We have somebody in Iowa. There's a couple people in Boulder, Colorado, which is an hour from me. It's like an hour drive. Thank you for coming on to the webinar and listening, and we'll send this replay to you. And again, let us know if there's anything that we can provide for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Good night.
Night.